Hi all, I hope you're doing well and welcome to the CineCircle Crowdfunding Masterclass. First of all, it would be fantastic if you guys could give me a quick thumbs up in the comments or a quick yes, just to make sure that you can see me okay, that you can hear me okay, and just to make sure that everything is working. So that would be the first step. Second of all, this webinar is going to last roughly 45 minutes. During it, I'm going to talk through some little tips and tricks when it comes to film crowdfunding, as well as some bigger crowdfunding strategies, especially when it comes to raising slightly bigger amounts of money. So throughout this webinar, also feel free to ask any questions you might have in the chat. I'm going to try to get through as many of them as I can as well. And also please feel free to use the chat as a networking opportunity, have a chat with each other, share some of your own experiences, what you're currently doing, and so on. Now, before we get started, a couple of smaller pieces of follow-up information as well. I saw one of the questions already in the chat. If you bought a CineCircle Pro subscription with your ticket, that will be emailed to you tomorrow. If you do not receive it by the end of tomorrow, please send us an email at info@cinecircle.co.uk, as sometimes those are automated emails that come out of Eventbrite. Sometimes those get rejected by the mailbox. Sometimes they get, the email bounces. So if you do not receive that subscription by the end of tomorrow, please reach out to us. But yeah, you should receive that via email tomorrow. And also, if you bought any additional online courses with your tickets as well, those will also be sent via email to you tomorrow. Okay, so let's get started on this webinar. So a little bit about what we're going to be going through today. We're going to have a little bit of an introduction to film crowdfunding and specifically what it is. We're going to talk about some statistics and strategy. We're going to talk about the essential steps to a successful campaign, and specifically 4 essential steps here. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how and where to find backers, and also how to scale your campaign past £10,000 or $10,000. So this will be the topics for today. And a little bit about me. So primarily I work as a digital marketing consultant. That's really where my expertise comes, in marketing, specifically within digital marketing. I also mainly worked as a film producer. I actually haven't produced a film in quite a while because I've been doing a lot of marketing work. But when I used to work as a film producer, it was very much, I used crowdfunding quite a lot. And I did a couple of bigger crowdfunding campaigns, some which raised £10,000, some which raised £30,000. And from those campaigns, I also started doing crowdfunding coaching. And besides that, I'm also the founder of CineCircle. So a little bit of an introduction. So I want to talk a little bit about what film crowdfunding is, who backers are, and just to make sure that we kind of debunk any myths over here. So essentially, crowdfunding is it's a way that you can fund a creative project or a new project or a new venture where a large number of people all contribute a small amount of money to help financially support this project. So why should you crowdfund? I'm going to start off with why you shouldn't crowdfund, because I think that's the most important thing over here. You shouldn't necessarily crowdfund, especially when it comes to filmmaking. You shouldn't crowdfund the film for your own financial gain. That doesn't mean that you can't make money from the film. That doesn't mean that you can't crowdfund and pay yourself a salary. But it does mean that, that shouldn't be the primary objective, is to make money for yourself. It really should be trying to put every single dollar on screen from that crowdfunding campaign and try and, raise money to really bring a film to life, rather than to just support yourself. And now, who are backers and where do they come from? I want to really put these into 3 categories. The first is, investors. Investors are people who are looking to get a return on their investment. Generally speaking, for film crowdfunding campaigns, that is not the case. Investors are only in equity-based crowdfunding campaigns. But most film crowdfunding campaigns on Kickstarter, on Indiegogo, on all of those different platforms, those are rewards-based crowdfunding campaigns, which means nobody is looking to get money back. what they are looking is they fall into one out of two categories. One is donors, people who simply want to donate to your campaign to help bring it to life. And the other is purchasers, people who are purchasing a specific reward. It's less about supporting the project, although that might be a secondary objective, but really what they're looking is to buy a specific reward. So for example, you might be offering a headshot photography session. And offering that as part of your reward, or creating a show reel, for example, for someone. You might put that as your reward for the crowdfunding campaign, and people would be essentially buying that reward. So I would forget about investors. That's more for equity-based crowdfunding campaigns, which traditionally film crowdfunding campaigns are not necessarily that. So you're really looking for donations and for people who are interested in very specific rewards that they would like to purchase. Now, I want to start off, before we get into the overall strategy, I really want to talk through some quick tips and tricks and statistics that I think, especially for people who are in the middle of a campaign or who are very, soon going to be launching a crowdfunding campaign, these little tips and tricks will help you. So it'll be, which platforms should you use, when should you launch the campaign, how long it should be, and what your target should be. So starting off with when to launch, statistically speaking, it's a pretty simple answer. You should launch it on Tuesday at 11 a.m. And the reason for that is that weekends are notoriously bad for crowdfunding. People check their emails less, people check their social media less, and people are generally less inclined to support a crowdfunding campaign on a weekend. And you want to make sure that as many of your first couple of days, where you are likely to raise a large amount of large percentage of what you raise, is going to be within those first couple of days, which essentially means you want to have as many days before you hit your first weekend. Now, the reason why you don't launch on a Monday is because Monday people are swamped with emails over the weekend. They're catching up on things. They're still getting their week together. So on a Tuesday, they're a lot more likely to support a crowdfunding campaign. So that way you launch on a Tuesday. It's a pretty good day. And you have a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and a Friday. You have 4 full days before you hit your first weekend, where you're likely to have your backers slow down a little bit. So I would suggest always launch on a Tuesday at 11 a.m. And it's at 11 a.m., whatever time zone the majority of your backers you think are, which is traditionally the place where you live as well. And what should your target be? I am going to try and be specific over here, even though your target can be honestly quite literally anything from £500 to 500,000 pounds. But traditionally for film crowdfunding campaigns, it's somewhere between 5 and 25K. The way that I would say this is you need to figure out what is the minimum amount that you could raise that will still make you really excited to make the film. Most films can be made for a very low budget or very high budget. Obviously, the quality will be different, but you can really choose, on the scale, the budget, and therefore the quality. But what is the place where you will still feel really excited to make the film? But at the same time, what is the lowest amount that you can raise that will still make you really excited to make your film? Because at the end of the day, if you're not excited, no one else will be excited about it. But if you pick a target that's too high, it's going to be very difficult to achieve. So what is that lowest target that will still make you really excited? And that usually falls somewhere between 5 and 25K for most filmmakers. And Kate, to answer your question, the graph does consider pretty much all different crowdfunding platforms. It is a general rule of thumb, and there might be specific times where you might want to launch on a different day. For example, if if there's a very specific event launching on a particular day, or your film is on, I don't know, Halloween, and Halloween just happens to fall on a different day, and for that very specific reason, you want to launch on a different day. But generally speaking, on all different crowdfunding platforms, you still want to launch on a Tuesday. How long should the campaign last? Here, this shows you the percentage amount on average that people raise at with their crowdfunding campaign from the start of the campaign to the end of the campaign, which essentially means that you see that you will raise a huge amount of money in the very first couple of days of a campaign and the very last couple of days of the campaign. And actually that period in the middle, that's where backers tend to really slow down. The campaign seems to die off, and it's actually really difficult to pick it back up at the very end. So once again, you actually want to make your campaign as short as possible, which still gives it the good chance to spread the word about the campaign. And normally it tends to be about 30 days. Now, as I mentioned, you want to launch on a Tuesday to have 4 days before you hit your weekend. You also want to give the last 5 days the highest chance of success. So the last 5 days of your crowdfunding campaign should all be weekdays as well, which means that your last day of a crowdfunding campaign should usually be a Friday, because that way you have 5 full weekdays on your last 5 days where you can still make a really big splash and get a lot of donations. So what I always like to do is you launch your campaign on a Tuesday, and you pick kind of the nearest Friday to 30 days. That makes sense, which sometimes can be a little bit more than 30 days, sometimes a little bit less than 30 days. But you should launch on a Tuesday, finish on a Friday, and have around 30 days as the length of your campaign. Which platform should I use? Now, I put the 2 biggest ones over here, and that's not necessarily because you should use these 2, but I want to give you the 2 main differences between these 2 platforms. And that is that Kickstarter is really known for being an all or nothing funding platform. This means that on Kickstarter, if you launch your crowdfunding campaign and you're trying to raise £10,000 or $10,000 and you end up, raising 9,500, you don't keep any of the money and your backers never get charged. On Indiegogo, you have the choice between a flexible funding model or an all or nothing funding model, which means that you have a choice between the same as Kickstarter, or you can keep whatever amount you raise. But most people consider Kickstarter all or nothing, and most people consider Indiegogo a flexible funding model. So when you pick one or the other, the mentality of the backers is kind of, all or nothing or flexible funding model. And now what is the difference? Well, Kickstarter has a much higher success rate. And it's got a much higher success rate because of that all or nothing funding model. You might tell yourself, well, why would I ever go for all or nothing? I want to go for, flexible, because if I don't hit the target, I can still keep the money. Makes sense, right? But actually, you got to think about the psychology of your backers. On the very first day, if you are running a Indiegogo flexible funding model crowdfunding campaign, and you have 0 backers, and you ask me, can I, back your campaign £50? I'm going to say, I'm going to wait a couple of days, because if I give you that £50 and no one else supports your campaign, you will still keep that money. You will not be able to make the film, and you will still keep my money. On Kickstarter, on the other hand, I will be a lot more inclined in the very first couple of days to be that first backer, give you that £50, because I know that unless you hit your target and you can make the film for the amount of money that you said you would, I will never even be charged. So for that reason, with the all or nothing funding model, which Kickstarter is famous for, you will get a lot more backers in the first couple of days of your crowdfunding campaign, because people have that guarantee that they don't with Indiegogo. Also, there is a similar effect at the very end of your crowdfunding campaign. With Indiegogo, if you've raised 9,000 and your target is 10,000, you will probably go, okay, that's pretty good. That's good enough. All your supporters and backers will say, okay, that's pretty good. On Kickstarter, you will have a really big push towards the end, where backers might be upping their pledges and increasing their pledges, because they really want you to get to that target, because they know that if you don't hit it, all of this was for nothing. So generally speaking, with the all or nothing funding model, you tend to have a much bigger kind of push and a lot more donations in the last few days of the crowdfunding campaign as well. So those are the 2 big differences between the funding models. And again, Kickstarter and Indiegogo are both famous for those 2 funding models. Now, that said, there are a lot of other platforms to consider. For example, if you're in the UK, Greenlit is one that you could consider. Greenlit is specifically a film crowdfunding platform. So that's something that you could consider there. And you can take a look at a variety of different crowdfunding platforms. But I would really, when you're doing a film crowdfunding campaign, either go for Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or go for a pretty specific niche platform that's specific to film crowdfunding. I know the US has a couple of those platforms. In the UK, Greenlit is one of them. They have some cool features over there as well, actually, that Kickstarter and Indiegogo don't have. And then the final thing that I want to say is, do your research and try and build a community on that crowdfunding platform. So here, the graph shows you the success rate based on how long you were on the platform before you launched your campaign. So if you launch your campaign and you were only on the platform a week beforehand, your success rate is going to be 25%. If you were there for 3 years before that, it's 50%. And there is a good reason that people just know a lot more about what campaigns do well, which ones don't. They know a lot of the back people on the platforms, so it's a lot easier to engage with them. So go on the platforms, take a look at all the campaigns, maybe even support some of the campaigns, even if it's £1 or $1. You will then get all the notifications, all the updates. You will see what kind of marketing the other campaigns are doing. So do your research. It's really, really important. Now, I want to get straight into the 4 essential steps. These are the 4 steps that everyone should take. And the great thing is that, first of all, no marketing strategies will help unless you get these 4 steps right. And the great thing is that actually, if you get these 4 steps right, you'll probably be able to find backers without any advanced marketing strategies. So don't do anything until you get these right. The great thing about them as well is you can do them completely by yourself. You don't need anyone or anything else to do those. So the first step is to really figure out your why. And this is spread into a couple of different sections, but you need to know why you're making this film. And it starts off with a selfish why. You need to be able to motivate yourself. And because crowdfunding is really, really difficult. So if you're making a short film and you don't really know why you're making it, and you think, well, I'm going to make a film, I'll then put it to some festivals and maybe they'll win an award or two, maybe they won't, but let's try and make a cool film. You don't have a strong enough reason to make that film, and most likely everyone else will see that. And because of that, you won't have the real motivation. So you need to make sure that you have a really strong reason why you're making this film, because crowdfunding is difficult, and you need to constantly show people that you are extremely excited about this film, and you can't fake that. So start with a really strong selfish reason why you're making this film. You then want to go to the strategic why. So this why is a little bit different, but in a way, you're taking that selfish why and you're turning it into a strategy. So you really want to decide, what are you going to do with that film? Is it for festivals? Is it for a show reel? Is it for a credit? Is it to show people that what you can do? So an example of this is I did a crowdfunding campaign for an action sci-fi little short thriller film. And really, I wanted to use that as a way to show people that I can produce. And most people, you can have a short film with 2 actors in one room. That's incredible, right? That's just the 2 actors talking in one room. No one will ever say the producer was amazing on that film, because they just put 2 actors in a room. So I decided I need to make a film that's going to have action sequences, visual effects. We're going to have, logistically, it's going to be quite difficult. I'm going to have fighting sequences and choreography and all of those different things to show people in the future that I can make, that I can be a producer. So I have a really strong selfish why, which is that I want to become a producer and I want to use this short film to show that I can produce. And I've got my strategic why. I've got all the different reasons. I've got all the different ways that I'm going to, to do that. So I'm going, I have all those things within the film. So figure out those 2 different whys. You then have a public why. That's a little bit different. That's kind of more of a PR-friendly way that you're going to be showing people, essentially, why should the audience care about this film? What do you want them to feel? So I'm making this film because I want the audience to laugh. This is going to be the most hilarious film. Or I'm making, a short film that has this, strong message about, that we should stop using, I don't know, that we should stop using, cars that are in electronic, or whatever it might be. You have that specific public why. You have that reason why you're making the film for your audience. And finally, all of those will turn into a story, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. Second step, you need to truly believe in your film. And I know that this seems like a really kind of, just general thing to say, but you wouldn't believe, like, most crowdfunding campaigns fail because the filmmakers don't even believe in the film. And the best way that you can really show whether you can believe in your film is, if I'd ask you right now, you need to take your closest family members and all of your closest friends, say 30 of them, and ask all of them to donate £100 to your crowdfunding campaign. Do you feel comfortable with that? If you don't, it's likely that you don't truly believe in this film. It's likely that you want strangers to support your campaign, because if it fails, they're just strangers. So this is a good first test. But really, you need to believe in your film, because that belief becomes contagious. If you truly believe in your film, your backers will too, and so will your team members. And a little exercise to do that I like to do is the fact that if I was to tell you, look, all you need to do is to raise £30,000 for your film, or $30,000, and I guarantee you that you will win an Oscar, or that your film afterwards will win an Oscar, and you will kickstart an incredible career, and you will have £10 million in funding for your next feature film. If I gave you that guarantee, would you be able to raise that 30K? Most of you would figure out a way. You would figure out a way to raise that 30K, because you have certainty that what will happen afterwards will be amazing. So if you have a strong enough selfish why, and if you truly, truly believe in it, you will find a way. But most people, they don't have that strong enough why, and they don't truly believe in it. So you really need to believe in that film, and believe that that film will get you to your selfish why. Next, you want to reinforce that belief with evidence. And this is both for yourself and for everyone else. So this could be, with past work, with attaching the right cast and crew who have a good showreel, who are very experienced. This could be by winning pitching competitions, or even by getting feedback from people. So if you get, feedback from people that the film is incredible, and no, not your mom or your dad, but, other people who might be a bit more objective, then okay, it's not just me who believes that this film will be great, but actually there are a lot of other people believe in it as well. A lot of people believe that, with that film, again, you can actually accomplish something. It can win some festivals. It can kickstart my career. It can get us, it can act as a proof of concept to get us funding for a feature. If you reinforce that belief with evidence, that will truly show within your campaign as well. And then the final and fourth step is you want to create the perfect pitch. And I'm going to tell you guys the elements of the perfect pitch for a crowdfunding campaign, because this is where most filmmakers go wrong. Most filmmakers will say, the film is about this and it's got these characters, and they are going to be pitching the film. That's where filmmakers go wrong. That is the film story. The film story is essentially what the story is about, who the characters are, the themes, the topics, and so on. But what you want to get to is the campaign story. And this is the pitch. This is what you can actually tell people in the networking event, even on your crowdfunding campaign page, and all the videos on your social media and so on. And that is, why are you making this film? The story of why you're making this film. And it has to be a story. Because what you'll find is that most people, they don't support a film when they support a crowdfunding campaign. They support a person behind the film. So they usually support the director or the project creator or the producer or anyone else who's a part of the film. It's rare that people support a film, because unless you're making a film that has a very, very specific topical subject that people are really, really passionate about. But in most cases, people will support the person behind the film rather than the film. So when you're pitching, you have to pitch your own story rather than the film story, because people will be supporting you. And you have to come across as really, really genuine with that as well. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of examples of pitches where, again, it's about telling the story of why you're making the film. Because a true story as well, something that I found, I've been to a lot of film networking events. If you tell a real story, it's so much funnier. It's so much more dramatic. People are so much more engaged with a real story. The moment you start pitching a story that you wrote or a film, it's just so much more difficult to actually get people's attention. So you have to tell a real story of why you're making this film. And I'm going to give you guys two very, very different examples. The first one is for one of my crowdfunding campaigns that I did for a short film about mental health. And the short film about mental health was really trying to show that small acts of kindness can have a massive impact on people's lives. That can really change people's lives. And we started pitching that. We were saying that we really want to make a film about mental health. We really want to make a film that will make an impact on people's well-beings in society. We really want to bring mental health to the forefront of people's minds. And the truth is, people heard that story a million times, and people have seen a million films about mental health as well. And everyone knows it's an important topic. We weren't really saying anything new. What people wanted is a personal story. And that's when we found that I went to a lot of networking events and I told people about the film. No one really cared until I told them why I'm making it. And the story is actually one of the other people who was part of the film as well. She was going through a really tough time for months, if not years, actually. And she was struggling with depression, with anxiety, and she wanted to take her life one day. She actually had the plan. She knew she was going to end her life. She went to work on her last day, or what she thought was going to be her last day. She started work completely lifeless. And she knew it was going to be her last day. One of her coworkers realized that she wasn't really there, that there was something wrong. And she made her a cup of tea, sat down next to her and asked her, "How are you?" But really asked her how she was. That tiny act of kindness saved her life that day. It was quite literally the reason why she didn't end her life. And it was the reason why suddenly all of these positive emotions spiraled in her. All of these positive thoughts of, people will miss me if I'm gone. People care about me. I have people here that I can rely on and I can count on. And all of these different things was the reason why she didn't end her life that day. And when she told me that a few weeks later, I realized a couple of different things. The first thing that I realized was that life is incredibly fragile. But then I realized that kindness is powerful, and that small acts of kindness can really save a life or even have just a really positive impact on someone's life. And I realized at that moment that we need to make a film about this. We need to make a film showing that these small acts of kindness, such as making someone a cup of tea, can have massive positive impacts on our society, even such as saving a life. That story resonated with everyone, because I think we all know people who have been suffering with some sort of mental health in our lives. And I think we've all had those days where we're just feeling extremely down. And I think we all have those days where someone had a small act of kindness that really changed our lives. And because of that, people started supporting the campaign, because they showed that we were genuine. They saw that we were, doing something that was going to make an impact. So that's the first pitch. Now I want to show you guys a completely different one. So this was for a campaign that I actually coached a couple of actors on, which was a comedy web series about tour guides. And these two actors came to me because they used to be London tour guides. And they said, look, we're going to make this comedy web series about London tour guides, because we experienced so many crazy things during the couple of years that we were tour guides in London, that we really wanted to make a web series about it. We think it can be hilarious. They started telling me about all the characters and the character development, and that two people are going to fall in love and all these different things. And it really didn't resonate in any way. So I told them, can you guys just start off with telling me a real story? Just tell me something. Like, why do you want to make this film? What was the moment where you decided that you wanted to make a series about this? And one of the actors, she said, well, I'll tell you. And it was the first day that I was a tour guide, that I actually got given, the sort of, I was leading the tour. And she told me the story. So she said, look, I went through a lot of training, and it was the first time that I got on the London bus. And, it was packed with people. It was a Saturday. It was a really busy time slot. So I started telling everyone about all the different monuments and all the different, tourist attraction sites and the history of London. People were engaged. People were asking questions. And I thought it was going great. And then I saw the kid pissing out the window. What do you do in that situation? And by the way, the mom's sitting next to the kid. She sees that he's pissing out the window. She's not saying anything. And I'm standing in the front of the bus thinking to myself, what on earth is going on? What do I do? And that was day one of the crazy 3 years that I had as a London tour guide. And that was the reason why I realized we needed to make a comedy web series about this, because people need to know the crazy stuff that we go through. And that was their pitch. And it was funnier because it was real. When they told me about the different things that they wrote, they just didn't resonate. But this, because it was real, it just really made me think, this is crazy. Okay, we need to make a series about this. So try and come up with that story, the real story of what was the moment where you realized you needed to make this film, and why? Why are you so passionate about it? Why is this going to be a great film? That is how you come up with your pitch. Remember, you're pitching your own story rather than the film story. Okay, and now that we've gone through those steps, I want to get more to the marketing side. That's the groundwork. And now, how do you reach out to people? You have that perfect pitch, you have the perfect story. What next? Where do the backers come from? So at first, I want to tell you guys the strategy. And the strategy is a simple formula. You want to reach out to a huge number of people who know you, know about your project, and you want to reach up them in a very personal way. And by the way, there are many different strategies to film crowdfunding, and it's very different depending on whether you're raising 5K, 10K, 50K, 500K, very different strategies. But I'm going to give you one of the main strategies that seems to work most crowdfunding campaigns, anywhere from 500 to 50K. And that's this one. So first, we want to start with personal outreach. You want to reach out to people as personally as possible. So a Facebook ad is the least personal thing ever. You're targeting people based on their demographics and interests. You don't know who they are. A social media post goes out to quite literally everyone and anyone, right? So it's also not personal. On the other hand, you start to go further down and you get more and more personal, such as a personalized email, a person private message, or a phone call. If you call someone, I guarantee you that there is at least a 70% chance that they're going to support your crowdfunding campaign. Or if you meet someone in person, again, the most personal way is in person. So you want to try and have as much of your outreach towards the bottom of this list over here. Now, the question is, how do you scale that? So how do you reach out to a mass number of people in this personal way? So I'm going to show you guys a couple of little tricks over here. The first is, on the first day of your crowdfunding campaign, you want to send out hundreds of highly personalized emails to people who might be interested in supporting your campaign. You can't do that on the day. You can send out a newsletter, but everyone will know it's not personalized. So what I suggest is you can draft your emails during the month leading up to the crowdfunding campaign to every single individual person. So again, it might be your family members, your friends, your colleagues, other people who have shown an interest in your film. And you write a personalized email to every single one of them. And if, for example, if you're using Gmail, you can just write the email, close the email, it will be saved in your draft folder. And at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, when you launch, you just click send, 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 and you can send hundreds of personalized emails. Also, you can use tools such as MailMerge. Don't use MailChimp. MailChimp, for example, is a newsletter marketing tool. MailMerge is an application that kind of integrates with Gmail so that you can actually send mass emails from your Gmail, not through a newsletter site, which essentially means it looks exactly like a regular email. You can tag people in posts. Twitter bulk DMs is something that I don't really recommend too much anymore, but it's something you can try. And then we also mentioned that meeting someone face-to-face is the most personal way. So how can you scale that? Create an event. Create an event and invite people to it, and what I would suggest is make the event on the first weekend. So as I mentioned, you launch on a Tuesday. The first 4 days, you'll be getting a lot of backers from online support. On the weekend, your backers are likely to slow down. So maybe on that Saturday, just throw an event with all of the cast and crew from the film, and tell them to invite everyone that they know. Get together for some drinks, maybe hire out a space in a bar or something, and get as many people into a room as possible, so that in one evening you can maybe talk face to face to 100 people and tell them about your campaign and tell them why they should support it and why you're so passionate about it. That's how you can scale the face-to-face meetings. Now, how do you scale that further? Because once again, you as a person, you can reach out to many of your own contacts, but there is only so much of that you can do. And you're probably most people get stuck at least like max 5,000. 5K is kind of the max that people can do by themselves with this strategy. So that's where you need to grow a team. Because growing a team, and by the way, I don't mean just cast and crew, I mean people who are going to be helping you raise money through your crowdfunding campaign. This, first of all, multiplies the amount of those personal contacts who support the campaign. It really expands your social media reach. You can try this if you have a Facebook page. If you post something on your Facebook page, it's likely to be seen by a couple of people these days. But if you have a team of 10 people who all share it to their own walls, suddenly it will be seen 100 times more. You also have various different skill sets on the team. So some people might be better at, for example, graphic design for your social media posts, for your campaign page. Some people one of them might be an editor. They can help with the campaign video. Another thing that's really great with a team is that you have more resources for rewards. Now, remember at the start when I mentioned that some people just want to buy certain rewards? Well, if you have a team member of 10, it's likely that one of them might know someone who's got an Airbnb and is willing to, give it out for 2 days as a reward for a crowdfunding campaign, for example. You might know that one of the people on the team is actually a photographer and can give out headshot photography sessions. One of the people might be, for example, a DOP who's got their own equipment, who's willing to hire that equipment out for 5 days as a reward, for example. So the bigger your team is, the more different rewards you can get that people will really want. The other thing is it really boosts morale. It's a very lonely to be doing a crowdfunding campaign by yourself. You want to be doing it as a team. And then finally, it adds credibility to your campaign, because if there's 10 people on your campaign, that means that you convinced at least 9 people that this is a good idea, that this film is a good idea. Whereas if it's just you, it can come across as a bit of a scam. So that's a good reason also to grow your team. And the theory is pretty simple, right? If you're trying to get to 10K, you gather 10 filmmakers, there's 10 of you. Normally for film crowdfunding campaigns, the average backing will be £50 or $50, which means each one of you needs to find 20 backers to get to 10K, right? It's actually it seems pretty achievable when you have that many people on your team, because that means 20 people, a couple of work colleagues, a couple of family members, a couple of friends, all giving about $50 or £50. Pretty achievable, but it's actually pretty hard. So why is that? And the main reason is people bring on board team members that aren't really crowdfunding team members. And the way to bring people on board your team is to not bring them on board your project. If you bring someone on board your project for your crowdfunding campaign and you want them to raise money for you, that will never, ever work. No one will give them money for your crowdfunding campaign because they will only give money to support them, not you. And second of all, that person will not have the right motivation. So here, the real trick is bring a team together to create a project together. And that doesn't mean that they need to own the rights. It doesn't mean that, that you can't be the main producer, but it does mean that you all need to feel like you're in this together. You're making this project together. You're not hiring someone. Come with people that ideally you already know and try and create something together. That is the best way to grow your team. This is kind of the formula here. And the way that I sort of did it is that for my 30K crowdfunding campaign, it was me and two main campaign managers. These are really the three of us were creating the project together. We came up with the main idea for the project. We were making it together. And then we slowly started to find other people who were just as passionate about the topic. And we decided to all create that film together. We had 12 associate producers and we had 5 cast and crew members who all helped promote the campaign. And essentially, all of us had to raise about 1.5K each. And that actually wasn't that difficult. When you do all the different marketing, everything else that you put together, you can find ways to raise that 1.5K each. But you need to, the best way to scale the crowdfunding campaign is to scale a really, really passionate team rather than just trying to find backers. Get people as excited about the crowdfunding campaign as you are and get them to join your team so that you can all have that big marketing effort together. So now the webinar is kind of coming to an end at the moment. So I'm just wondering whether you guys have any other questions. If you do, please feel free to pop them in the chat. I'm hoping that you found this information useful. As I mentioned, there's only so much information you can pack into 45 minutes. So I was trying to give you guys as many of different strategies and specific tips and tricks as possible. So I'm hoping that you guys found it useful. I'm hoping that it will help you guys in your own crowdfunding campaign. As I mentioned, there are many different ways and that you can raise money for a crowdfunding campaign. This is one of the main ones that I found is possible to explain in a 45-minute webinar. So I do hope that you guys found it useful. I'm going to see whether you guys have any other questions over here. But in the meantime, if you guys are looking for more in-depth lessons and advice, both about crowdfunding, but also about different forms of funding films, so for private investors, for pre-sales, for tax credits. If you're looking at learning how to distribute your film, perhaps as well, whether it's self-distribution or finding sales agents and distributors, we offer quite a lot of different lessons on the CineCircle Pro subscription that someone mentioned already at the start of this webinar. And it actually includes a 6-hour course, which is this complete guide to film crowdfunding that we've put together as well. And if you are interested in all of these kind of different courses, in addition to the courses, we also have a lot of different discounts for film festivals and other memberships, film-related memberships that you can get. You can actually currently still get a 65% discount on this membership using this code, the 23OCTCF. We are going to send a follow-up email with this, yeah, I just wanted to put it over here as well, and I am going to add it into the chat, and then I'm going to answer some of the questions that you guys have, and I'm seeing them come up in the chat. But yeah, if you guys are interested in that, check it out. So let me get to some of the questions. Do you have advice on backing tiers and rewards that cost little, are scalable, but draw interest? So there's a couple of different strategies when it comes to rewards. The first one is all rewards under £100 or $100 should be digital. If you guys try and do like t-shirts for $50, they're going to cost you about like $10 per t-shirt to do. And second of all, actually, if you get like 300 of those and you then have to worry about the shipping, it's extremely expensive and time consuming. So the first thing that I would really recommend is that any rewards under £100 or $100 are digital. Now, that said, you want to try and make them. What I love to do with those is to try and give people an experience, because people love the experience. So things such as you will be added to a private Discord server or channel where every single day we are going to be giving you at least one update about the film, a month before we shoot and a month after we shoot. We're going to make sure to keep you updated there. You will be getting exclusive information. So really make them feel like they're going to be a part of this journey of making the film. They're going to be a part of this experience. So that'll be my tip there. Then afterwards, from £100 to about 500 or £1,000, you want to give more of those experience rewards, but that might not necessarily be digital. So for example, here you can say you will get a day on set, and you will get an assistant producer credit or something. It might be that we got someone who's got who can do headshots, and he'll give you a headshot photography session, or we might do your show reel, for example. So these types of experiences, or for example, if someone's got an Airbnb for 2 days, and then over $1,000, you want to get into the producer credits. So, associate producer, co-producer, executive producer credits. And for those ones, you want to try and add more in there than just that they will get the title. For example, try to add a little in there. So for example, if you're shooting in London, say you will get invited to, a day on set with a premium meal. We will order a Uber Black cab for you to pick you up, take you to on set and take you back. So you put a little bit of money in there to give them that premium producer experience. People really love that kind of stuff. Offer that experience that you would be excited to have. Do you have any tips to creating this network? I moved to a new city and don't know anyone around here who works in film, so I'm a bit lost. So 2 tips on growing a number of people who would be willing to support your crowdfunding campaign, for example, is in terms of the team, it's really networking events. Go to networking events, talk to people face to face. The best way, just go. There's a lot of free networking events. The ones that aren't free are usually really cheap. Like for example, at Cine Circle, we run networking events in London and we charge, I think, £4 for entry. Some of them are actually free that we run as well. Go to a lot of networking events because you need to click with people on a personal level. So definitely face to face. Now, when it comes to finding backers, 2 strategies. If you don't know anyone in the city that you're in, the first one, ask for feedback. People who give feedback will be a lot more likely to then support your campaign. It's a really strange thing, but if you ask people, can you give feedback on my Kickstarter page? Can you give feedback on the script, on the treatment? That gets people to, do something to help you. And then when you ask them to support the campaign, it becomes a lot easier. And the second one is acts of kindness. I know it's been a bit of a theme today, but if you do nice things for people, they will do nice things for you back. So, if you, just go on a bunch of different Facebook groups and ask people, how you can help, and it might be something like, hey, can you vote for me in this competition? That would help me a lot. And if you vote for them, they might then support your crowdfunding campaign. So do a little act of kindness to get into people's goodwill, and then they'll be more likely to support you. Would you recommend using more than one parallel campaign, maybe Kickstarter in the US and Greenlit in the UK? No, only ever do one crowdfunding platform, because otherwise your 2 crowdfunding platforms will both not look as successful. Basically, you want to put all your marketing efforts into one campaign, because if on 2 campaigns you've raised £3,000 on each one, it's not looking great. But if you raise £6,000 in one, people will go, oh, okay, this campaign is gaining traction. Remember, people want to support successful crowdfunding campaigns. So you want to get as high of your percentage raised on one platform as soon as possible. It's a little bit like when you're walking down a street with a lot of restaurants and you see that, there's a couple of restaurants where there's no one in there, and then there's a couple that are buzzing and everyone is there. You're most likely going to go to those restaurants where everyone is there because you can say there's something wrong with these ones that are empty. Truth is, maybe there's nothing wrong with them. Maybe it's just the fact that we like to go where everyone else is. And it's the same thing with crowdfunding campaigns. If you see that a crowdfunding campaign has raised a lot of money, you're more likely to support it because you think, okay, it's probably not going to be a scam. There's a lot of people who supported it already. Whereas if you have a small amount raised on a bunch of different platforms, all of them will look a little bit scammy. So always launch on one crowdfunding platform. Okay, and that seems to be everything for now in terms of questions. This video is going to stay up on here, actually. So for anyone who's who wants to rewatch this, they'll be able to rewatch this recording as well. One more question over here. Would you recommend a smaller goal so it is achieved and then people seem to jump on board once it's guaranteed? So you definitely want, this is where I was saying, you want to set the lowest target that will still make you excited, because that way you're more likely to, what you really want to do is within the first 2 or 3 days, you want to get to 30% funded. That's kind of the main thing. So you really want to get to that 30% mark. Once you get to 30%, the campaign starts to gain credibility. So always ask yourself, how can I get to 30% funded in the first 2 or 3 days? Because if you can do that, you're then, actually, I think you statistically have a 90% chance of success if you do that within the first 72 hours. What was your percentage crowdfunding and how much other sources? So we are actually doing a short film for the 30K. So that was pretty much nearly the full thing. So we were raising 30K for a short film there. We actually, in addition to that, run a couple of events where we were selling tickets for events, and through that we actually raised some more money for post-production and for the festival around and so on. But because it was a short film, 30K was enough for us. Okay, great. So yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed that. I hope that you found it useful. Feel free to check out the CineCircle Pro membership if that's something that will be of interest to you guys. Otherwise, at CineCircle, we run quite a lot of different filmmaking events, especially teaching filmmakers the business side of filmmaking, mainly when it comes to funding, distribution, and career development. So I hope you found it useful. And yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your day, wherever you are. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you at another event. So thank you and take care.